I knew I'd regret it the second his eyes opened. The music was too loud, bass vibrating through the floor like a second heartbeat, and the air smelled like cheap whiskey and expensive mistakes, the kind you make when you're tired of being invisible, when you just want one moment to feel something real. So I did it. I leaned in and kissed a stranger, except he wasn't just a stranger. He was still, completely still, like the world had paused around him, like I had pressed a button I didn't understand, and when I pulled back, breath catching, expecting confusion or maybe a laugh, I got nothing. No smile, no anger, just silence, heavy and suffocating, the kind that spreads across a room without warning. And that's when I noticed it. The way conversations died mid-sentence, the way people stopped moving, glasses halfway to lips, eyes suddenly fixed on us like I had stepped onto a stage I didn't know existed. And he just looked at me, slow, deliberate, like he was memorizing something he hadn't decided what to do with yet. His gaze, dark, unreadable, colder than the ice melting in my glass. And I felt it then, that shift, that instinct screaming that I had made a mistake, a real one, not the kind you laugh off with your friends later, but the kind that follows you home, the kind that changes things. You shouldn't have done that, he said, voice low, controlled, not loud enough for anyone else. But somehow it cut through everything, and I laughed. Because that's what I do when I'm nervous, when I don't understand what's happening. It was just a kiss, I said, trying to shrug it off, trying to step back. But I didn't get far, because suddenly there were men, not close enough to touch, but close enough that I felt surrounded, their presence quiet but impossible to ignore, like shadows that decided to take shape. And the door behind me, the one I had walked through 10 minutes ago without thinking, was no longer just a door. It was guarded, watched, controlled. My pulse started to climb, slow at first, then faster, and he didn't move, didn't raise his voice, didn't need to, because everything in that moment revolved around him. Do you always make decisions this quickly? He asked, tilting his head slightly, studying me like I was something out of place. And I swallowed, trying to keep my voice steady. Only when I know I won't see the person again, I said. And for the first time, something flickered in his expression, not amusement, not quite, but something close enough to make my stomach tighten, because it felt like I had said the wrong thing, like I had challenged something I didn't understand. His eyes held mine for a second longer than necessary, and then he leaned in, just enough that only I could hear him. That's where you're wrong, he whispered, and the words settled into my chest like a promise I didn't ask for. And somewhere behind me, I heard someone say his name, quiet, careful, like it carried weight, like it mattered. Jack Wick. And suddenly the night didn't feel random anymore. It felt planned, like I had stepped into something that had rules I didn't know. And as I looked back at him, really looked this time, I realized. He hadn't reacted because he was surprised. He hadn't reacted because he was deciding what I was worth. And the worst part was, I didn't know if I was supposed to run or stay. Only that whatever came next, I wouldn't be walking out the same person who walked in. The door did not open when I reached for it. And that was the moment everything stopped feeling like a misunderstanding and started feeling like a decision someone else had already made for me. My fingers still resting on the cold metal handle as I slowly turned back. The music behind me now distant, muffled, like it belonged to a different world. And Jack Wick was still standing exactly where I had left him, like he had not moved because he never needed to, like the entire room adjusted around him instead, my heartbeat loud in my ears, each second stretching longer than it should. Is this a joke? I asked, trying to sound steady, trying to pretend I was not calculating exits that were no longer exits. But he did not answer right away. He just watched me, that same quiet intensity, like he was studying how I reacted when I realized I was not in control. And that realization hit harder than anything else, because I was used to choosing, used to walking away, used to deciding who stayed in my life and who did not. And suddenly that choice was gone. You said you would not see me again, he said finally, his voice calm, almost thoughtful, like he was repeating something interesting rather than something important. And I let out a small breath I did not realize I was holding. That was before I realized you had a security team guarding the exit, I replied. And something shifted again, subtle, but enough that I caught it. Like he was not used to people answering him like that. Like he expected fear or silence. Not this, not me. And for a second, just a second, I wondered if that was why he had not told them to let me leave, because I was different, or maybe just because I was inconvenient in a way he had not planned for. One of the men near the door glanced toward him, waiting, always waiting. And Jackwick did not even look in their direction. He just lifted his hand slightly, barely a movement, and the door opened behind me with a quiet click that sounded louder than the music ever had. "You can leave," he said, simple, direct, like he was giving me back something he had taken without asking. And I should have walked out. I should have grabbed that chance and disappeared into the night, gone back to my small apartment, my normal life, my safe routines, but I did not move. Because something about the way he said it did not feel like freedom, it felt like a test, and I hated that I knew it. "And if I do?" I asked, crossing my arms, forcing myself to hold his gaze even though every instinct told me to look away, to break whatever invisible connection had formed the second I kissed him. "Then you leave," he answered. But there was something under it, something unspoken, something that made the air feel heavier, like the answer was not complete, like there was more he was not saying. And I took a step toward the door, then another, my hand brushing against the frame as I paused, waiting for something, anything, for him to stop me, to prove that I was right about this not being over. But he did not move, did not speak, and for a second I thought maybe I had imagined all of it, the tension, the control, the way the room had bent around him. Maybe he was just a man who did not like being kissed by strangers. Maybe I had turned it into something bigger in my head. And then I heard it again, that quiet voice behind me, not calling my name, just stating something like a fact, like a truth that did not need to be argued. "You will come back," Jackwick said, and I froze, not because he sounded threatening, but because he sounded certain, like he had already seen the outcome. Like this moment was just the beginning of something that had already decided how it would end. And I turned slowly, meeting his eyes one more time, trying to understand how a single sentence could feel like a pull I could not explain, like a thread tying me to a place I had every reason to leave. And that was when I realized the door was open, but I was the one hesitating. And that terrified me more than anything else. I should have walked out and never looked back. But instead I stepped into the cold night air with his voice still echoing in my head. The street quieter than it should have been for a Friday. Neon lights reflecting off wet pavement like everything was slightly unreal. And I told myself it was over, that whatever just happened inside that bar was nothing more than a strange story I would never tell anyone. Except my hands were still shaking as I pulled my jacket tighter around me, my breath visible in the cool air, and I kept replaying it. The way the room had gone silent. The way everyone had looked at him like he was something untouchable, something dangerous, and the way he had looked at me like I had just stepped into a place I did not belong. I started walking faster, heels clicking against the sidewalk, each step trying to create distance between me and whatever that was. But the feeling did not fade. It stayed, sitting heavy in my chest, like I had left something unfinished behind me. And I hated that. I hated not understanding, not being in control, not knowing why a single moment could feel like it had shifted something I could not see. A car passed slowly, too slowly, and I glanced up, catching the reflection of dark-tinted windows, my pulse quickening again for no reason I could explain. I told myself I was being dramatic, that this was just adrenaline, just the aftershock of an awkward mistake blown out of proportion by my own imagination. And then my phone buzzed in my hand, making me flinch harder than it should have. I looked down, expecting a message from a friend, maybe asking where I had disappeared to, but there was no name, no number, just a single line of text that made my stomach drop. "You left too quickly." I stopped walking, the city noise fading into the background as that sentence settled into my mind, my fingers tightening around the phone, because there was no way, no logical way, for him to have my number. I had not given it. I had not even said my name. And yet there it was, simple, direct, like he had always had it, like he had decided it before I ever walked into that bar. I turned slowly, scanning the street behind me, half expecting to see him standing there, watching, but there was nothing, just strangers passing by, unaware, normal, untouched by whatever world I had brushed against. Another message came before I could move, slower this time, deliberate. "You were thinking about coming back." And I let out a quiet breath that almost sounded like a laugh. Except it was not funny, because he was right. I had been thinking about it. Not seriously, not consciously, but the thought had been there. That pull I could not explain, like a question left unanswered. And that scared me more than the message itself, because it meant he had seen something in me I did not even want to admit. I should have blocked the number, should have ignored it, should have kept walking and pretended none of this existed. But instead my thumb hovered over the screen, my mind racing through reasons, excuses, logic that all pointed to the same conclusion. This was a bad idea, and somehow that made it harder to let go. I typed before I could stop myself. Who is this? Even though I already knew. Even though there was only one person who could make the air feel like this without even being there, the reply came. Instantly, like he had been waiting. Jack Wick does not repeat himself, and I felt that same stillness settle over me again. That same quiet certainty that this was not coincidence, not chance, not something I could walk away from as easily as I wanted to believe. I looked back at the bar, its glowing sign visible down the street, the door I had just walked through now feeling like something else entirely, not an exit, but an entrance. And for a second I stood there, caught between two versions of my life, the one I knew and the one I had accidentally stepped into. And I realized with a slow, sinking clarity that he had not needed to stop me from leaving, because somehow, without touching me, without following me, he had already made sure I would not be able to stay away. I told myself I was not going back, not tonight, not ever, but my feet did not move the way my thoughts did. They slowed instead, hesitating on the sidewalk like they were waiting for permission I had not given. The bar still glowing at the end of the street, music spilling faintly into the night, and my phone felt heavier in my hand than it should have, like it carried more than just a message, like it carried a decision. I read his words again. Jack Wick does not repeat himself, and there was something about it that did not feel like arrogance. It felt like certainty, like a rule I had just been introduced to without understanding the consequences. I exhaled slowly, my breath visible in the cold air, trying to ground myself in something normal, something logical, because none of this made sense. People do not just get your number without asking. People do not make rooms go silent with a single glance. People do not speak like they already know what you are going to do next. And yet, here I was, standing still while everything inside me argued in two directions at once. Leave. Forget this. Go home. That voice was loud, urgent, familiar. But there was another one, quieter, more dangerous, asking why. Why did it feel like unfinished business? Why did it feel like I had walked away from something that was not done with me yet? My phone buzzed again, a soft vibration that sent a ripple through my chest. I did not want to look, which meant I already knew I would. You are still there, he wrote, and my heart skipped in a way that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with being seen. Not physically, not in a way I could prove, but in a way that made it impossible to pretend I was just another face in the crowd. I turned slightly, my eyes finding the bar again, the entrance framed by warm light and shadows moving behind the glass. And I wondered how long he had been watching. Not just tonight, but before, if this was coincidence or something else entirely, something I had stepped into without realizing. I typed slowly this time, forcing myself to be deliberate. You think you know everything. I pressed send before I could overthink it. The reply came almost instantly. I know enough. And that answer settled deeper than I wanted it to, because it was not defensive. It was not trying to prove anything. It was simply stated, like he did not need to explain himself, like he had nothing to convince me of. I swallowed, my fingers tightening slightly around my phone. You do not know me. I sent, the words feeling stronger on the screen than they did in my chest. And for a moment there was nothing, no reply, no vibration, just the quiet hum of the city around me. And I told myself that was it, that I had pushed too far, that whatever strange connection had sparked was over before it could turn into something worse, something real. I took a step forward, then another. Finally moving away from the bar, my pace picking up as relief started to settle in. Maybe this was how it ended, abruptly, strangely, but safely. And then my phone buzzed again, stopping me mid-step. I closed my eyes for a second before looking down, already knowing it was him. You are right, the message read, and for a brief second, confusion replaced everything else, because that was not what I expected, not from him, not from someone who spoke like he controlled outcomes. I stared at the screen, waiting for more, and it came, slower this time, like each word was chosen carefully. I do not know you yet. And something about that word, yet, made the space around me feel smaller, like the distance I had just created did not matter, like it was temporary, like it was already being closed. I lifted my gaze again. The bar still visible, still there, still waiting in a way that did not make sense, and I realized this was no longer about a kiss, or a mistake, or even him. It was about a choice I had not fully made yet, whether I walked away and pretended this never happened, or turned around and stepped back into a world that clearly did not let people leave unchanged. And the worst part was, I could not tell which option was more dangerous, only that standing here, caught between them, felt like I was already in deeper than I should be. I do not remember deciding to turn around. Only that one moment I was walking away and the next I had stopped again, my body caught in that same invisible pull that had been there since the second I kissed him. The street suddenly feeling too quiet, too empty, like everything outside that bar was just a pause between something that had already started and something I could not avoid. My eyes lifted slowly, finding the entrance again. And this time I did not look away, because pretending this was normal was no longer working. Pretending I could just go home and forget was already slipping out of reach. My phone was still in my hand, his last message still glowing on the screen. I do not know you yet. And that word lingered in my mind in a way that made my chest tighten, not because it sounded like a threat, but because it sounded like a plan, like I was not the one deciding how this ended. I took a breath, deeper this time, colder, letting it fill my lungs before I exhaled slowly, trying to steady myself, trying to think clearly, because this was the moment, the one that would define everything after. I could leave, block the number, erase this night, or I could step back inside and find out why none of this felt like an accident. My fingers moved before I fully committed, typing a single line. If I come back, I press send, and for the first time since this started, there was a pause, longer than before. Enough to make me wonder if I had broken whatever rhythm we had fallen into. Enough to make me question if maybe this was where it stopped. But then the reply came. Simple, immediate, like it had been waiting beneath the silence. You already are, and I froze, my breath catching in my throat as those words settled into me. Because he was right again. I had not moved yet, but something inside me had already turned, already leaned back toward that door, already crossed a line I could not see. I looked down at my hands, steady now, which somehow felt more dangerous than the shaking had, because it meant I was choosing this, not reacting, not panicking, choosing. And that realization sent a quiet kind of fear through me, the kind that does not make you run, the kind that makes you step forward anyway. I lifted my gaze one last time at the empty stretch of sidewalk behind me, the normal world waiting there, untouched, predictable, safe. And then I turned fully toward the bar, my steps slower this time, deliberate, each one, closing the distance I had created, the music growing louder with every step, the lights brighter, the energy shifting as I approached. And when I reached the door, my hand paused on the handle, just for a second, just long enough to acknowledge that I could still walk away, that this was still a choice. And then I pushed it open, stepping back into the noise, the heat, the crowd that parted just slightly as I moved through it. Not because they knew me, but because they knew something else. Something that had already marked me the moment I walked out the first time. My eyes found him almost instantly, like they had been pulled there, like the room had rearranged itself to make sure I could not miss him. Jackwick stood exactly where he had been, as if time had not touched him at all, as if he had known I would come back and had not seen a reason to move. And this time, when our eyes met, there was no surprise, no question, just recognition, like we were both aware that whatever this was, it had already begun. And I realized as I walked toward him, feeling the weight of every step, that I was no longer trying to understand why I had come back. I was trying to understand why leaving had felt impossible in the first place. I felt it before he said anything. That shift in the air as I got closer, like the noise of the bar bent around him without permission, like everything loud suddenly knew when to quiet down. And when I finally stopped in front of him, my pulse steady in a way that surprised me. I realized I was no longer reacting. I was stepping into this with my eyes open. You came back, Jackwick said, his voice low, almost calm, like he was stating something obvious rather than something that mattered. And I tilted my head slightly, refusing to let him own the moment completely. You said I would, I replied, and there it was again, that flicker in his expression, not quite a smile, but close enough to feel like I had crossed into unfamiliar territory, something that was not meant for everyone. He studied me for a second longer, like he was confirming something he had already decided. And then he gestured toward the empty seat beside him, not commanding, not asking, just expecting, and I hesitated, not because I was afraid, but because I understood what sitting down meant. It meant staying. It meant continuing whatever this was instead of pretending it had been a mistake. But I sat anyway, the leather cool beneath my hand as I slid into the seat, aware of every detail, the way the people around us kept their distance without making it obvious, the way the staff moved carefully, like they knew exactly who he was and what that meant. And I leaned slightly toward him, lowering my voice just enough to match his. "You always this sure of people?" I asked, and he did not answer right away, his gaze shifting briefly, scanning the room in a way that was effortless but intentional, like he was aware of everything without needing to show it. "Only when they make it easy," he said finally, his eyes returning to mine, and something about that answer made my chest tighten, because it sounded like he was not just talking about tonight, like he was talking about patterns, about reading people in ways I did not understand. I crossed my arms, lightly, grounding myself. "You do not know anything about me," I said, repeating the words I had sent earlier, needing to hear them out loud, needing them to hold weight. And this time, he leaned in slightly, not enough to invade my space, but enough that I could feel the shift, the focus narrowing. "You walked back into a room you knew you should leave," he said quietly. "That tells me enough to start." And I swallowed, because he was right again, not in a way that exposed everything, but in a way that made me feel seen in a way I was not used to, not comfortable with. I looked away for a second, scanning the room like he had, trying to reclaim some control, but it was hard to ignore the way everything seemed to orbit him. The way people glanced in our direction and then quickly looked away. The way the atmosphere carried a kind of unspoken awareness. And when I looked back at him, I realized something else, something that had been there from the beginning but I had not fully processed. He was not trying to impress me, not trying to explain himself, not trying to pull me in with words or gestures. He was simply there, certain, grounded, like he did not need to convince anyone of anything. And somehow that made it harder to resist, harder to dismiss. "So what now?" I asked, my voice quieter than before, not weak, just measured. And for the first time, he leaned back slightly, giving me space without breaking eye contact, like he was considering the question rather than controlling the answer. "Now," Jackwick said slowly, "you decide how much of this you want to understand." And the way he said it made it clear that this was not about the bar anymore, not about the kiss, not even about him entirely. It was about something bigger, something I had already stepped into without realizing. And as I sat there, feeling the weight of that choice settle in, I realized that whatever this was, it was not going to end with me simply walking away again. Because this time, I was not being pulled back, I was choosing to stay. Something shifted the moment I stopped asking questions and started listening, not just to his words, but to everything around him. The way the bartender avoided looking directly at him, the way conversations nearby lowered without anyone being told, the way the space felt controlled without anything visible enforcing it. And it made my skin prickle with a quiet awareness that this was not just confidence. This was something built, something established long before I walked in and made a mistake I could not take back. "You still think this is about understanding me?" Jackwick said, his voice calm, almost reflective, and I frowned slightly, turning toward him fully. "Then what is it about?" I asked, and this time, he did not answer right away, his gaze shifting past me for just a second, sharp, focused, like something had caught his attention that I had not noticed yet. And that was the first moment I felt it. Not fear exactly, but a change, subtle and immediate, like the air had tightened, like something had entered the room that did not belong in the same way I did not belong. I followed his glance instinctively, my eyes scanning the crowd, and at first everything looked normal. People laughing, drinks being passed, music steady, but then I saw it. Or maybe I felt it before I saw it. A man standing too still near the far end of the bar, his posture stiff, his attention not on the music or the people, but on something specific, something focused, and I realized with a slow, sinking clarity that it was not just Jackwick people were watching tonight. It was me. My stomach tightened, not because anything had happened, but because something might, and I did not know what. That meant yet, do not react. Jack Wick said quietly, not looking at me, his voice low enough that it barely carried. But somehow it reached me perfectly, and I forced myself to stay still, to breathe evenly. Even as my instincts told me to turn, to leave, to create distance between myself and whatever tension had just appeared. What is going on? I whispered, my voice barely steady. And this time he looked at me again, his expression unreadable but sharper than before, more focused. You are learning, he said. And that was not an answer, but it was enough to make my chest tighten, because it meant this was not random. This was not just a strange night. This was something with layers I had not even started to understand. The man across the room shifted slightly, his attention flickering away for a second before returning, subtle, but intentional, and I felt it again, that awareness, that I was now part of something I could not see fully, something that had rules I did not know. You said I decide how much I want to understand. I said slowly, my voice quieter now, more careful. What happens if I decide I do not want to understand any of this? And for the first time, something in his expression changed, not softer, not exactly, but more direct, like he was choosing his words with more precision. Then you leave, Jack Wick said, his tone even, but there was something under it now, something that had not been there before. And you pretend tonight was nothing, he added, and I let out a small breath, trying to hold on to that option, trying to believe it was still real, that I could still walk away without consequence, without something following me. But the way he said it made it sound like pretending. Would be exactly that, pretending, not truth, not reality, just something I told myself to feel safe. And if I stay? I asked, because I needed to hear it, needed to understand what line I was standing on. And this time, he did not hesitate, his gaze locking onto mine in a way that felt heavier than before, more intentional. Then you stop being invisible, he said, and the words hit harder than anything else he had said so far, because they were not about him, not about power or control or whatever world he came from. They were about me, about something I had not even realized I was carrying, and before I could respond, before I could process what that meant, I noticed movement again, closer this time, subtle but undeniable, and Jack Wick's attention shifted once more, not alarmed, not rushed, just aware in a way that made everything else feel slower by comparison. And in that moment, I understood something I had been avoiding since the beginning. This was not just about curiosity or attraction or a mistake. This was about stepping into a space where things happened whether I was ready or not. And as I sat there, caught between leaving and staying, I realized with a quiet certainty that whatever was about to happen next, I was already too close to walk away untouched. The shift did not explode into chaos. It unfolded quietly, like something practiced, something that did not need noise to make its presence known. And that was what made it worse, because nothing around me looked wrong. No one screamed. No one ran. The music kept playing, glasses still clinked, but beneath all of it there was a tension now, thin and sharp, like a wire pulled too tight. And I felt it in the way my shoulders stiffened without permission, in the way my eyes kept wanting to move. Back to that same spot across the room. Even though I told myself not to, even though Jack Wick had already warned me, do not react, so I did the only thing I could think of. I focused on him instead, on the steady presence beside me, on the way he had not moved, had not rushed, had not shown anything that matched the tension building around us. And somehow that steadiness anchored me, even as my thoughts started racing faster than I could control. You knew this would happen, I said quietly, not accusing, just stating what was becoming obvious. And for a second, he did not respond, his gaze still fixed somewhere beyond me, calculating, aware, and then he spoke, calm as ever. I knew it might. He corrected, and that difference mattered more than I expected, because it meant this was not planned, not controlled, just anticipated. And that made everything feel less predictable, more real. I swallowed, forcing myself to keep my voice even. And I am still here anyway, I added, not sure if I was reminding him or myself. And this time he looked at me again, fully, that same intensity returning. But there was something else under it now, something sharper, more focused, like he was reassessing, adjusting. Yes, Jack Wick said, and the single word carried more weight than it should have, because it sounded like acknowledgement, like acceptance of a choice I had already made, whether I understood it or not. Movement flickered again at the edge of my vision, closer now, and I caught a glimpse of the same man shifting position, not rushing, not obvious, but deliberate, like he was testing something, like he was waiting for a reaction that was not coming. And I realized then that this was not just about being watched. It was about being measured, and I did not know what the outcome of that measurement would be. "Stay with me," Jack Wick said quietly, and it was the first time he had phrased anything like that. Not a command, not a suggestion, just a statement that felt like it mattered more than anything else he had said so far. I nodded slightly, not trusting my voice, not trusting myself to break whatever fragile control I had left, and I stayed still, even as everything in me wanted to turn, to track every movement, to understand exactly what was happening. Seconds stretched longer than they should have, each one pulling tighter than the last. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the tension shifted again, not gone, but redirected. Like whatever line had been tested was no longer the focus. The man across the room looked away first, his attention breaking, dissolving back into the crowd like he had never been there at all. And I let out a breath I did not realize I was holding, my shoulders relaxing just slightly, but not fully, because the feeling had not disappeared, it had just changed. And when I looked back at Jack Wick, I saw it immediately. The difference, subtle but unmistakable, his posture the same, his expression controlled, but his attention now fully on me. Not the room, not the threat that had just passed, me. What just happened? I asked, my voice quieter than before, more careful, because I knew this was the moment, the one where things either became clearer or more complicated. And he held my gaze for a long second before answering, like he was deciding how much to say, how much to reveal. "Someone wanted to see how important you are," he said finally, and the words settled into me slower than everything else tonight, heavier, because they were not about him. They were about me, and I felt something shift inside my chest again. Not fear, not exactly, but awareness, sharp and undeniable, because I had walked into this thinking I was just a mistake, just a moment, and now I was something else entirely, something being noticed, something being watched. And as I sat there, trying to process what that meant, one thought cut through everything else, clear and impossible to ignore. I was no longer just in his world, I was becoming part of it. The words stayed with me longer than they should have, echoing quietly in the space between my thoughts. Someone wanted to see how important you are, and I did not know what unsettled me more, the idea that someone was watching or the fact that Jack Wick had not seemed surprised by it. I shifted slightly in my seat, the leather no longer grounding but unfamiliar, like I had been sitting still for too long in a place I did not understand. "Important to who?" I asked, my voice steady but softer now, more careful, and he did not look away when he answered, his gaze holding mine with that same quiet intensity. "That depends on what you choose next," he said, and I felt that again, that subtle shift inside me, the one that had been growing since the moment I walked back through the door, because this was no longer about curiosity, it was about consequence. I let out a slow breath, my fingers brushing against the edge of the table, grounding myself in something real, something solid. "You keep talking like this is a choice I already made," I said, and there was something in my tone now, not defiance, not fear, something sharper, something that wanted clarity. And for a second, just a second, Jack Wick leaned back slightly, creating space without breaking the connection, like he was giving me room to understand rather than forcing me to accept. "You walked out," he said calmly. "And you came back," he added, and that was it. No explanation, no pressure, just a simple statement that carried more weight than anything else he could have said, because it was true. I had left, I had been free to go, and I had chosen to return, not because I was forced, not because I was trapped, but because something in me had not let it end there. I looked down for a moment, my reflection faint in the surface of my untouched drink, and I barely recognized the girl staring back. Not because she looked different, but because she felt different, like she had stepped into something that would not let her go back to being the same. "So what happens now?" I asked quietly, and this time, he did not answer right away, his gaze shifting briefly across the room, not searching, just confirming, like he was making sure something had settled before continuing. And when his attention returned to me, it felt heavier than before, more focused, more certain. "Now," Jack Wick said slowly, "you stop pretending this is small." And the words landed deeper than I expected. because they stripped away the last piece of distance I had been holding on to, the idea that this was just a strange night, just a moment I could eventually laugh off. But it was not anymore. I felt it in the way my chest tightened, in the way my thoughts slowed instead of racing, like something inside me was finally catching up to what had already started. And if I am not ready for that? I asked, my voice quieter now, not weak, just honest in a way I had not been before. And for the first time, his expression shifted in a way I could not fully read, not softer, not exactly, but less distant, like he was acknowledging something real rather than analyzing it. Then you will learn, he said, and there was no edge to it, no pressure, just certainty, and that certainty was what made it impossible to ignore. I held his gaze for a long moment, longer than I should have, longer than felt comfortable, but I did not look away, because I understood something now that I had not before. This was not about him pulling me into his world. It was about me stepping into it on my own, piece by piece, choice by choice. And as the noise of the bar continued around us, untouched, unaware, I realized how quiet everything felt between us, how focused, like the rest of the world had faded just enough for this moment to matter more. And then he leaned in slightly, not close enough to invade my space, just enough to make sure I heard him clearly. You kissed me like you had nothing to lose, Jackwick said, his voice low, steady. But you came back like you already knew you did. And something about that hit deeper than anything else tonight, because it felt true in a way I had not been ready to admit. And as I sat there, feeling that truth settle into me, I realized that whatever I thought I had lost the moment I kissed him, it was nothing compared to what I was about to risk by staying. And the most dangerous part was, I was not sure I wanted to stop.